$84. That's how much the newest flagship 3x3 from GAN is going to cost you. The GAN 13 MagLev. So while this may be the new most expensive 3x3, it may also be the most advanced. This thing has magnets in places that I have never before seen. It's got MagLev, it's got piece magnets, it's got a brand new type of core magnets, it's even got box magnets, because why the heck not? So it looks like it opens up like this, oh, and like this. We get nice printed pictures of the mechanism with all of its magnets on this nice soft velvety feeling surface, and the cube and the accessories come out like this. That is one heck of an unboxing. Now let's quickly check out what's inside this accessories box. It looks like we got the standard GAN solving tutorial, some instructions on the cube itself, as well as this nice velvety GAN bag. Interestingly though, there are no adjustment tools, which hints to me that they might have changed their adjustment mechanism. It looks like they changed up their cube box as well, and oh my gosh, there's more magnets. That is so satisfying. GAN is doing a great job of making this feel like a premium, top-of-the-line experience. In my hands, it feels just like the GAN 12 MagLev with its glossy UV coating. The cube also comes in a matte plastic version, which is a little bit cheaper at $78. I would say the UV coating gives you slightly better grip, although as I found out the hard way, you really don't want to accidentally scratch it with a knife. And currently, it's just those two versions. There is no GAN 13 Leap, so it seems like they're sticking with the MagLev and the core magnets and all of that. So, let's do some first turns. Whoa. Okay, that is interesting. First off, it definitely feels like a GAN cube, nice and light and fast like normal, but there's a few things about it that feel special that I really actually like about it. First off, it kind of feels a little bit more smooth and sort of soft than normal. Maybe that's just it being lubed well, but it definitely feels more cushioned or less harsh than before. Second, there's definitely some weird stuff going on with the core magnets, sort of pulling you towards each turn. I think they've toned it down a little bit since the GAN 12 MagLev, and I actually really like how it feels, but we'll talk about that later. And third, the way this cube performs during an algorithm just feels so fluid and controllable. I mean, GAN cubes in general have a reputation for being very unforgiving. This is the 11M Pro. I think it's because they're so light and flexible. It means that if you turn very precisely, they'll work fine, but the second you start to get a little bit sloppy, you'll just start getting lockups like crazy, and that tends to get the most bad when you're in a competition, nervous, hands shaking, and you just can't turn the cube correctly. That's why I've been competing with non-GAN cubes recently, and checking out cubes that are just a little bit more stable, a little bit more controllable. And I feel like the GAN 13 MagLev does go a ways towards solving that problem. It's a little bit more forgiving, and overall just a very comfortable cube to solve on. Anyway, let's talk about the magnets, because there is some very advanced stuff going on inside of this cube. Like I mentioned at the beginning, there's three main systems that use magnets, not counting the box, and the first of those is the standard edge corner magnets. You can see them right there, and basically what these do is they keep the cube perfectly aligned rather than being slightly offset like this. The second magnetic system is the MagLev. We're gonna have to open up the centerpieces to check that out. I'm sure you guys know what MagLev does already, but let me show you real quick. Basically, inside the centerpieces, we have these two opposing magnets which repel each other, and that's what gives the cube its elasticity rather than a spring. This has a few advantages. For one, because the magnets aren't actually touching each other as they repel, it means you have less friction, which makes the cube faster. The way that the force increases as the magnets get closer together means that you have a slightly more cushioned feel to the turning, and of course, you don't have any spring noise. Now, as for the actual adjustment system, it looks like they haven't changed how it fundamentally works. They've just changed the tool that you have to use to adjust it. I'm actually pretty happy about this because one thing I hated about the GAN 12 MagLev is every time I wanted to adjust it, I had to run and go find this stupid little tool just so that you could reach down in there. So the way it works now is you can just use anything little like a screwdriver to fit down there and turn the bottom wheel or the top wheel. The top one does seem a little bit finicky. Honestly, you could just use your fingernails though. Essentially, the top one adjusts how far the center is able to travel, so kind of like the tensions, whereas the bottom one adjusts how close the magnets are together, so kind of how much springiness you get. So that's the MagLev, that's the adjustment system, pretty similar to what we've seen before. But as I hinted at earlier, the core magnets in here are totally unlike any other Rubik's Cube. If you need a quick refresher, core magnets work by literally having 8 magnets attached to the core, and then each corner also has a magnet on it, and so, as you complete a turn, those magnets attract to each other, pulling you into place. And the reason these are different from normal piece magnets is because they're so much deeper into the core, you can feel that magnetic pull from much further away, and so instead of just giving you that nice sharp click at the end of a turn, it'll actually literally help pull you towards that end of the turn. So it's a much more comprehensive magnetic feeling that you can feel all the way through the turn rather than just at the very end. So what's so special about the GAN 13 MagLev? Well, it's pretty crazy, so let me just open it up and show you. Not only do we have magnets on the corners attracting to those core magnets, but we also have magnets on the edges which repel from the core magnets. So in case you didn't catch that, as a corner is spinning around, it starts out attracted to that position, and then you pull it away from that magnet, and then it pulls itself towards the magnet at the next position. Whereas when you have an edge spinning around, it actually starts out equally far away from all the magnets repelling them, and then as you get closer to that magnet, it sort of pushes itself away and goes to the next position because it's trying to repel all the magnets. So essentially, you have two opposite forces working together. The corners are pulling you towards a full turn, and the edges are pushing you away from a half turn. Now, admittedly, the edge magnets aren't that strong. You can definitely feel them, but they're not doing a whole lot. So while it is a clever idea, I doubt how much extra effect it really has. Although at the same time, GAN did just put it on their flagship Speedcube, so maybe it does really make the cube turn better. Or maybe it just sounds cool. MagLev edges. Anyway, you can also adjust the strength of the magnets on the corners if you want an overall stronger or weaker magnetic feel. There's a total of 6 different magnetic settings, which is actually more than I've seen on any other cube. And as I spin this wheel, you can actually see the little magnet on the bottom move up and down, which is actually pretty cool how they adjust it. Now, while the cube is disassembled, let's quickly compare the pieces to its predecessor, the GAN 12 MagLev. As you can see, the corners look very similar. They did change up that adjustment mechanism I was just talking about. I heard of issues on the old one where it accidentally changed between different settings, and that is definitely fixed on the new one. It looks like they also swapped out this big long magnet for a magnet on a stick, which probably saves some weight. And also, if you look on the old corner, you can see all sorts of holes all over the place and these little clips sticking out, whereas on the new one, those are all smooth, which probably reduces some catching. As for the edges, well, yeah, they pretty much look identical, except for the big magnet now sticking out on the GAN 13. Now, a moment ago, I mentioned catching, which was actually a big issue on the GAN 12 MagLev, or at least on my GAN 12 MagLev. What I eventually heard was that there was an issue with some of the early units, including my cube, which led to this very annoying catching in the middle of turns sometimes, which honestly just made the cube unpleasant to use. But it sounds like they fixed it pretty quickly, so unless you bought the GAN 12 MagLev right away, it probably wasn't an issue. Now, I have noticed a tiny bit of similar catching on the GAN 13, but honestly, it's comparable to most other GAN cubes, nowhere near as big of a deal as on my 12. And one more thing about the GAN 12 MagLev, this was the first cube with those really strong core magnets that really pull you in on each turn. Even on the weaker setting, it was kind of overwhelming how much it did that. And while it is kind of nice to be guided to the end of each turn, the flip side of that is that it also takes a lot more force to begin each turn because you have to escape that magnet in the first place. I ultimately wasn't a huge fan of this system just because it kind of negates a lot of that light effortlessness that normally comes with a GAN cube. It almost just felt tiring to solve in this cube because every single turn you have to overcome those magnets. So what does this mean for the GAN 13 MagLev? Well, let me try and flick both these cubes at the same time with the same amount of force. And there we go. Every time I do this, the GAN 12 moves just a little bit or not at all, whereas the GAN 13 does a full turn with not a whole lot of force. So some combination of either weaker core magnets or maybe even those repelling edges just makes the GAN 13 a lot more effortless than the GAN 12. I can pretty easily do single flick U2s, sometimes even a U3. And somehow despite that, it still seems to guide you into place just as well. So who knows, maybe those crazy edges are doing something. Anyway, I've already mentioned this cube is $84 or $78 for the matte version. I'll link it down below at thecubicle.com, and as always, you can get 5% off with discount code Z3Cubing. But if you watched this far into the video, you now get to see my very out of practice solve. So I just did some inspection, so 3, 2, 1, go. I will say confidently, this is probably the best cube GAN has ever made. Now, is it the best 3x3 for everyone? No, that depends on your turning style. But I would bet the majority of cubers in a blind test would prefer the turning of this cube to anything else. Also, I wouldn't blame the cube for this, I'm just really bad at end perms. So that sounds like a pretty strong recommendation. The only problem is that $84 price tag. So if money is no object to you, absolutely, buy the GAN 13 MagLev. But if you're on a bit more of a budget, you can get some great flagship 3x3s from the likes of X-Man or Moyu for less than a third of the price. Either way, I would say this is definitely the most advanced technology I have ever seen in a Speedcube. Just so much performance, so many features, so much adjustability, and I've had a lot of fun trying it out. So I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I have, because that's pretty much it, and I'll see you guys next time.